Alright guys, I just got back from a mostly successful test run finally. It's my 4th try. Learned, so I got all the way up to the top of the hill here and back, and then the tire started acting funny and the brakes weren't really working, but I'll show you a few things that I learned here. So first, I tried 3 or 4 times and the chain kept falling off and I kept breaking that, or that master link kept kind of falling off. And I'll show you, if I can find it here, what I was doing wrong. I kept moving the motor rather, back and forth to tighten the chain, and I moved the sprocket sideways a little bit to kind of make sure it was lined up with the sprocket here a few different times, thinking that was the problem. But I think what the actual problem was, I was putting on that master link wrong. Let me roll it around here so you can see it. So the way this master link works, right here you can see this funny little one here. This was a little half link I had to install to make it fit just right. But this here is the master link, and this is like a little clip, this little piece here. So the way it works, it's got like, I don't want to take it off right now because it's kind of a pain in the butt, but the way you take it off basically is you get a little screwdriver and you push it that way, and this little thin piece comes off, and there's another piece underneath it, kind of like this, a little cap, just a flat circle piece. I was forgetting to put that on first before putting this connector piece on after, so you can kind of see it behind it. See how there's this top piece and there's this piece below it. I was forgetting to put that little piece on, and so it was loose and it was falling off every time. So once I figured that out, the chain stayed on, had a pretty successful run this most recent time. But what happened was the brakes weren't working very good, and so what I realized was down here, here's the, I can't really see it very good, but this brake drum here has a keyway slot. It's got to go in. See this little keyway here? There's got to be a key that goes in here, and it goes underneath the actual brake drum to keep this brake drum from spinning. See, this is the key here. They call it a key. It's not really a key. It's just a rectangular, square, whatever you want to call it, piece of metal that fits in that little keyway. And basically it locks the drum into the axle so that the drum spins along with the axle. Right now, the drum is spinning separately, so I'll show you. See, when I was pushing on the brake here, it was tightening up around the drum, but you can see, let's see if I can show you this. Putting my foot on the brake. See here, now it's spinning together. Both the axle and the drum are spinning. When I put my foot on the brake drum stops spinning, but the axle still moves. So it's not doing its job, and that's because of the fact that this drum is not connected via that key in the keyway to the axle. So I forgot to do that, and I didn't do it intentionally because the fact that I'm missing the collars that go, there's supposed to be a collar on one side and a collar on the other side that hold that key from sliding in and out, and also keeps this drum from moving back and forth on the axle. And so those are pieces that were missing from the kit that I had to order. I'm going to be getting those hopefully in a couple days. So that was one problem. The brakes weren't working, but that's the reason they weren't working, is because that key wasn't in there and it wasn't locked in place. The other issue I noticed was these, as you can see, the frame is kind of sliding back and forth on the axle. It's not supposed to do that. This collar here is supposed to lock up against that bearing, the wheel bearing inside here, and it's supposed to keep it from moving. But I tightened it, but I think I stripped it out because it was getting really loose and it kept spinning. So I think I got to get some new ones of these, maybe a better style of those, and maybe also use some kind of thread lock on there so the screw doesn't unscrew and loosen, so it stays nice and tight. And that's probably a good idea for any of this stuff here. You get a lot of vibration from this motor, and so that thread lock, I'll show you that too. Here's that thread lock I bought. I haven't used it yet. You're supposed to just put a little dab or a couple dabs on the head of the screw or the bolt when you put it in, and then tighten it in there good, and it'll stay. Won't come undone. And so I should have done that probably on pretty much everything in there, just to keep it from getting loose. I'll show you the problem I had with the tires as well. So I noticed before that these just kept loosening up. So I think some thread lock on there would probably help this from coming undone, and would keep it nice and tight. Also, they make a better one. It's called I think it's called a nylon lock nut. The back tires came with it. It's got this special little bit of, I don't know if you can see, a little bit of nylon kind of built into the nut, so it's really hard to get on, and it stays nice and tight. I ordered a couple of them, I think, on Amazon or maybe from GoPowerSports.com. Haven't gotten them yet, so that's probably the best idea, to keep those nice and tight on there. So that's one issue. But the other issue is, I think something's going on here. You can see this little piece. I think I broke the bearing here, the inside of the bearing. It's got a couple pieces coming off, and the plastic is chipping there. I think it's either because it was loose, or because my spacer maybe isn't the right kind of spacer. Remember, I had to make one. They didn't have one, and I couldn't find one. So I just cut a piece of 3/4 inch pipe and drilled it out a little bit, and then slid it on there as a spacer, but it might be too thin. And when I screw the nut up against it from the outside, it might put too much pressure on that bearing, and I think maybe I broke it. So there's probably a thicker spacer, I suspect. I gotta do a little more research and find the proper spacer that comes out probably thicker, that probably can come out to maybe out to here and kind of push up against this whole rim, maybe instead of the actual bearing inside the rim. Kind of like on the outside here, the pressure is going up against this rim, not the inside of the bearing. So when I put the nut on, it puts this pressure against the washer, and the washer up against the rim, not the bearing, I think. Can't really see it from... Well, maybe it is up against the bearing. Either way, it's the outside of the bearing, the full bearing, not the inner piece of it. So that's probably what I got to do on the inside, or maybe even a washer that's small enough to just barely fit over, make it wide. That might work too. I'll do a little research, figure something out. But I think I probably need a new bearing, because I busted it up. Looks like. See this one over here is in a little better shape. You can see the piece is still attached. I think I broke that bearing by having too much pressure on that inside. So that's something I got to fix as well. Oh, also the steering is really tight, meaning it turns really fast, so it's a little dangerous. If you're going fast and you turn it all the way, you're probably going to flip it, because it's going to go whew, and it's going to go really fast flip. So you got to really, when you're going fast on this thing, just really small turns, right? Tiny little turns. Put both hands, one hand here, and hold on really tight. You may need to put some kind of roll cage on this thing eventually, or a seat belt or something to hold you in if you do roll it and flip it, because it's very easy to flip it, I think, if you go real fast. I gotta research how to maybe make that a little less tight, or a little less severe, I guess, whatever the word is, so it turns a little smoother and a little slower. So I'll work on that a little bit as well. And I think that is it. So once I get all those parts in the mail, I'll adjust everything out, tighten everything up, and give her another try, and we'll get an actual good video of me driving it. But yeah, this thing's pretty fast. I think it's had to be going at least 20, 25, but held up pretty good with me on it, my weight. So you guys should do pretty well on it. You just got to be safe on it. So all right, that's it for now, guys. I love you. I'll see you soon.